G'day everyone, can you all hear me? Louder? Quieter? Shut up, louder. Yes, I was, we're talking about probably before many of you were born, but there was this thing called Flash. I don't know whether you remember it. It was fantastic. What's that?
I think my mom used that.
There you go. So yeah, I built a game. So there was this evil politician, I know that's hard to believe, who was talking about the stolen generation and said, you know, there was nothing really wrong with children being stolen. And he happened to have, I think, 9 children of his own. So I built a little Flash game where you could steal his kids. And as you stole his child, a quote came up on screen that was actually a quote from him. And so I emailed it to him. And I was working with a guy, and that evening came in this email that said, you know, literally that, you know, we'll track you down, we'll hunt you down, you fucker. And I showed it to this guy who owned the server and everything, and he said, what I can't understand is how they found out about it so fast. And I said, because I emailed him. You what? So we took it down for about 5 minutes and said, fuck this, let's put it back up. So there you go. And they never tracked me down, because it's quite hard to track people down on the web. By the way, as that was happening, for some reason it hit press, and my phone, that was in the old days where you had little flip phones, all of the press within 5 minutes had tracked us down, and yet apparently the federal police were needed to track us down. Anyway, there you go. So tonight I'm going to talk about an incredibly dry and boring topic called the property value syntax. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because I want you to suffer the pain that I suffered many years ago when I was learning about CSS. And I've heard rumours, 2 things. One, there's going to be a prize given away for this little competition I've got at the end. True. And number 2, none of you can leave the room until you've solved a CSS property value syntax that I provide you on a bit of paper. So there's going to be a long queue of you all waiting here trying to solve these things, and none of you are leaving. You might try to jump off the balcony, but you can't leave it. So anyway, the W3C, hands up who's heard of the W3C? Wow, that's amazing. So I have this thing called the CSS property value syntax, and it looks like this. Who's ever seen something like that? Oh God, okay, that's good, that's good. So by the end of tonight, you should hopefully understand at least some of these sort of things. So the basic aim here is just to show you the syntax, so if you ever come across these things in the wild, and that means actually going to the W3C site and actually looking at some syntax, but hopefully you can understand a bit better. And what I'm hoping is it'll become a hobby of yours, like bird watching, where you can go and learn about it. So before we do that, I've got to talk to you about this thing called Bacchus Nor. Another show of hands, who's heard of Bacchus Nor? Oh my God, we've got some computer scientists in the room. Now, what I want you guys is to keep your hands in the air for the whole presentation. No, what I'd like you guys to do, when I say guys, I mean in the unisexual way. If I say anything wrong, pick up your chair and throw it at me, because I'm not a computer scientist, so I might get some of this wrong. But anyway, Bacchus Nor, or BNF I'm going to call it for the rest of the presentation, is a notation that's used to describe computer languages, so that we can do them non-ambiguously. Yeah, make sense? So Bacchus Nor would look something like this. And at the left, we've got what's called a non-terminal symbol. And I'll explain that in a second. And then we've got this funny little like equal sign with 2 colons, and that means may be replaced with. And then we've got an expression. Yeah, that's it. And the expression, how am I doing so far? BNF experts. Oh, okay. They've already put thumbs down. So the expression can consist of all these different symbols that are used to derive the meaning from what's on the left. So fundamentally, BNF can be broken down to, in a simple term, whatever's on the left may be replaced with whatever's on the right. All good? Very simple. Now, I'm going to talk quickly about non-terminal and terminal symbols. Non-terminal symbols begin with angle brackets. He says doing a mime of angle brackets. So that means they can be broken down further. I've seen someone taking a photo there. I'm just going to make it blurry. So non-terminal symbols can be broken down further. So if we look at this beautiful recursive example, we have all those ones in yellow are non-terminal symbols, which means they can be broken down further. Yep. And a terminal symbol is the opposite. That means a symbol that cannot be broken down further. And so example is digit equals 0 or 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, etc. Now you're all BNF experts. Deafening silence. Okay, there's also a range of different variations for it. One's called EBNF, another called ABNF. I only bring them up because I'll be hinting at EBNF as we go along, or extended Backus NOR form. But let's now talk about the joys of the CSS property syntax, because I can see you're also riveted about BNF. Before I go on though, I'd like to say, a lot of you are probably thinking, one, why the hell do I care about this? But I'll give you an example. It happened to me once, and it could happen to you. You're walking down a dark alley, someone pulls a knife and says, give me the properties value syntax or I'll stab you. And so I had to give this long explanation of BNF, and you went, okay. So it can be a case where it's really important. So the W3C syntax is similar to BNF and EBNF, so there's some similarities and some differences. So in all these cases, they all have a non-terminal symbol at the left. You need a non-terminal symbol at the left because you need to break it down at the right. And like EBNF, it uses an equal sign, which means may be replaced with or is equal to, etc. But here's where it's different. In the WC3 syntax, whatever's at the left or at the right is called a component value. So all that stuff there, they're called component values. This is where it starts to differ. Now we're going to talk about 4 different types. The first one is a keyword value. So a keyword value is something that cannot be broken down further. It doesn't have angle brackets around it, and it's something like thin. Now you can write that in CSS, yeah? You can write border-width, thin. So that is something that's not replaceable. It's a terminal symbol. The next ones are called basic data types, and things like color and length. So if you have something like the syntax of background color equals color, we could break that down into a keyword value, an extended keyword value, an RGB, an RGBA, an HSL, HSLA, current color and transparent. If in the old days, does anyone remember system color? You could do system color as well. This is just someone either spat on me or the roof leaked. And I'm presuming you want to be spat on me at the mention of system color. But you'll be glad to know that system color, as John will tell you, who's probably the only one in the room that knows. Yeah, well, there used to be a system color, but that's gone. Anyway, the next type is called the property data types, and these are the most important. They have angle brackets around them, but they also have little quotey things. And that means that they're actual properties. It actually says in the spec, little quotey things. You can look it up. So the difference here is we've got our angle brackets, but we've also got quote symbols. Now this means it's an actual property. So you could write border-width, yeah? That's the difference between other non-terminal symbols. And then our last one is called the non-property data types, and that's pretty well everything else. So if you have something like line-width, you cannot write that in CSS. It's not a property, but it's still a non-terminal symbol, and it helps to define or express some components of a property value. So line width you can't write in CSS, but line width helps us to describe things like border width. All good? I can see you're all riveted. So here are our 4. Keep these in mind because this is part of your test before you leave. We've got keyword values, basic data types, property data types, and non-property data types. Let's now talk about combinators because we can put these together in exciting ways. And the first way is that if you see a syntax written with 3 or 4 values in a line, you must write them in that way. So in this case here, we've got our syntax, property equals value 1, value 2, value 3. When you're writing that property in CSS, you would literally have to write value 1, value 2, value 3. Make sense? The next sort is a double ampersand. Now, who was on crack when they wrote that, you ask? What that actually means, though, is that all of them must occur, but they can occur in any order. So we have, the syntax would be property, value 1, ampersand, ampersand, value 2. That means you could write them in any order. All of them must appear, but in any order. So our CSS could be written as value 1, value 2, or value 2, value 1. Make sense? Next up, we have the pipe. And we're not talking about crack pipes. Only one of them must occur. So it's like an OR symbol. So this is value 1, or value 2, or value 3. So in our CSS, we could write them value 1, value 2, or value 3. Next up, we have double pipe, and this means one or more of them must occur in any order. So now we have property, value, pipe, pipe, value, pipe, pipe. This means we could write one or more of them in any order. We could write value 1, value 2, value 3, value 1 and 2, you get the drill. And the last of these combinators is a square bracket, and that means whatever you put in there is a group that has to be treated as a single unit. So if we look at this one, we have a property, and then our little group here. They are one group. So now we have to use value 1 or value 2 with value 3. So in our CSS, we could write value 1, value 3, or value 2, value 3. So they're a grouping. I can see what you're saying. I want more, Russ. I want more complexity. Am I right? I can read your minds, you bastards. You filthy bastards. Anyway, let's now look. Oh, well, I'm going to recap. I don't know why I care. But, OK, so the ways we can do it is all in order. The double ampersand means all in any order. One of them must occur, or. And then one or more must occur, or a grouping. I'm putting them there because I know you've already forgotten what I just said 3 minutes ago. The next thing we're going to do is multipliers. So if after a word or a grouping, you put a question mark, then it has significance. So if you use a question mark, it means 0 or more times. So in this case, if we had value 1 and then a grouping which has a comma as part of the grouping and then value 2, we could write that grouping 0 times. So we could just write value 1. But we could also write comma value 2 because the question mark means 0 or 1 time. Oh. Next one is an asterisk, which means 0 or more times. Very similar to the one before, except you can write comma and multiple values of them. Now a plus, that means 1 or more. So if we have value plus, we can use, and by the way, this is the transform property, uses this exact thing. You can write multiple transform values without a comma in there. So in this case, value plus means you can write as many, halfway, as many as you want. I'm not even a quarter way through the slides. I'm lying. I can see the looks on their face. What? So the next one is a times. If the inside curly braces, it has a, that means the number you have to do. So if you have value equals 2, you must put 2 values there. If you have a comma b, it means a minimum of a and a maximum of b. So if you have something like value 1 comma 3, you can write 1 value, 2 value, or 3 values. I can see what you're saying. I wanted more complexity, please. Well, just as well, because we can write a comma and no b, and that means it must be a minimum of a and can be a maximum, whatever your evil brains could imagine. So you could write as many values there as you want. Next up, we have the hash. 2 more, guys. Hang in there. So this occurs 1 or more separated by commas now. So in this case, you could have value hash, means it will automatically put the commas in there for you. I can see what you're thinking. What possible one uses this? How about font face? Font family. You can use that way. Oh, and the last one is an exclamation mark, and that has to be right after a group. So it only works with a group, and it means that the group is required and must produce 1 value. So if we had something like value 1, and then a group of value 2 and value 3, you must include either the value 2 or the value 3. All good so far? Okay. So quick recap. Question mark, 0 1 time. Star or asterisk, 0 or more times. Plus, 1 or more. A must occur a times. AB, minimum of A, maximum of B. A comma means minimum of A, no upper limit. Hash means separated by commas. And exclamation mark means that group must produce 1 value. You all got it because you can't leave the room until you get it. So quick mental snapshot. Okay, an example. Let's look at the text shadow example. So what we have here is text shadow, none, bar. What does this mean? Or. So we could do none or something else. What's this square brackety thing mean? That's a group. So we could do 1 or a group. Let's look inside the group. Length 2, 3. What does that mean? Come on, you bastards. Minimum of 2 length values, a maximum of 3. Did I just call you bastards aloud? Sorry, that was my inside voice. I didn't mean to, I promise. So we can do a minimum of 2 length values and a maximum of 3. What does the double ampersand mean? Oh, come on. Oh, there you go. All in any order. Now, here's a trick. There's an evil trick that these people wrote in here. Can you see what the evil trick is? All in any order. That means that both these values must be included. But then what do? They put a question mark after the colour, and what does that mean? You don't have to put it there. So, what we can do with this is we can write none or, and then minimum of just 2 length values. The length values are going to be the x and y coordinates of a drop shadow. Yeah? How far down it is, how far across it is. That's all you need to write a text shadow. Because if you don't include the 3rd length value, the blur, it will just do it as a sharp value. If you don't include a colour, it will just do the colour of the text. So the absolute minimum you could get away with is just writing none or 10px, 10px as an example. But we could write 3 values, or we could write 4 including the color red. And because it can be written in any order, we can put the red at the front of those 3 values. And then we could put multiple text shadows by just putting a comma after them. And weirdly enough, they stack on top of each other. Weird as that go that way, isn't it? So anyway, if you wrote in English, this would be none or one or more comma-separated groups of 2 to 3 length values and an optional color value in any order. Make sense? Look at you all nodding away. You're lying. I could tell. So here's a challenge for you. We're going to do a little burger challenge, and I have to say that I completely ripped it off. It's not my idea at all. But from, I think, about 1962, this little article on A List Apart, this great guy called, he says, can't remember his name, Eisenberg, J. Eisenberg, great guy. He wrote this fantastic little thing about how you would break the syntax of a sandwich. So, of course, we use a burger because we're different. So anyway, how would you define the syntax of a burger if you had to put a specific set of ingredients in a specific order? That's your challenge. We're going to go to a break in a second. Now, I think we've got something to give away. Your phone.
No.
Fantastic.
No, we've got magazines.
Are you going to flush out the contacts before we give it away? What's that? Oh, okay. Scroll magazine. Fantastic off-screen. Scroll magazine, did I say?
Off-screen.
Off-screen magazine. Just rewind for a second. Off-screen magazine. 1 copy to the winner, plus the iPhone of Fiona. Fantastic bargain. But you have to get something right. You've got the break to do it. So in the correct order, I'm going to give you one little hint. It's got to be written like this. Burger equals. And then you've got to do this. You've got to put a bottom bun, one of the following, mustard or mayonnaise, lettuce, which is optional, tomato optional, one of the following, chicken or beef, etc., etc. You can write this. I believe in you guys. I do. Despite the fact that I call you bastards before, I believe in you, bastards. So we're going to go to a break. And then if you think you know the answer, come up and talk to Fiona or I. You can do it by writing it, he says, like manually, or you can type it, or you can do it as an interpretive dance. They're the 3 options?
Yes.
Extra points for interpret. That means 2 scroll magazines, 2 off-screen magazines, and your phone as well. I'm done. Thanks for that, guys.